This video is on the Unwrapping Standards project, which is in Module 3. For this assignment, I'm assigning you into 4 work groups so that you are able to work together in this process. Unwrapping the standards is an important process for you to understand what's in the Nebraska standards or national standards. What are the knowledge, what are the skills, what are the essential questions that we're really trying to get at. This will help you in the development of your own district music curriculum, or it will just help you in your individual lesson planning on a daily basis. So I've divided you guys into little groups based on basically what you usually teach. So, and this is close, I know, but I also needed to make sure that I had equal groups as well. So I got pretty close, I think. And so each of the groups here will focus on one grade band. And we're going to be using the Nebraska state standards to unpack. Now I know a couple of you are not in Nebraska, but this, I think, will still make sense to you because the Nebraska standards, when we wrote those, we tried to do our best to align them with the national standards, which were being rewritten at the same time. And so I kind of like to refer to the Nebraska standards as the Cliff Notes version of the national. So I think this will help you either way. We're going to be using Google Docs as our place of doing this project, and I've already created templates for you to work in. It's going to be a collaborative nature, so each group will have editing rights for their grade band. Everybody else will have viewing rights of all of the Unwrapped standards. But that way you can work together asynchronously, and I think this should work out pretty good. With that in mind, if you don't usually use Chrome as your browser, I'm going to encourage you to do so, because that way you make sure you don't run into any issues when you're doing this project. There's really nothing for you to submit once you're done, because I will be able to see your work as you go, and I'll be able to see the work on Google Docs when you're done. But I will have you submit something to Blackboard, just a very short description, and again you can just type that directly into Blackboard, or if you want to type it into a Word document and upload it, that's up to you. Probably no more than a page, just on what did you learn by going through the process, what questions do you still have about this process, and how might this benefit you in the future. And so this is where you'll go to this little assignment 3, just click on that and upload that. That will also activate the rubric, so I can go in there and then do the individual grading. So please make sure you don't forget this little last component. All right, as I mentioned, you should probably use Google Chrome, and I've already shared with you this file that is entitled Doane College Unpacked Nebraska Music Standards, and in there are all the little templates. And if you just put your little cursor over the title there, you'll see that the first one there is grades K through 2. So if I was just to open that up, here is the template that you will be working in. And I've already typed in all the standards for you. That part is done. And so with Nebraska, we have an overall standard here that says students will develop and apply knowledge and skills to create, perform, and respond. That's the general standard of music overall. What we're going to be more concerned about are the process standards, which are here. And this will be for each grade level, and each grade level just gets to be a little bit more specific. And then on the process components is basically the left hand column when you look at the standards, and this is where we kind of combine some of the steps from the national standards. In the national standards, you have imagine is one step, plan one step, make one step. Here we did a little bit of combining of that, so just so you're aware of that. All right, so here's this, and you'll be able to just then to type into each one of these little columns. You're going to be typing in the need to know, the concepts, the skills that the students need to be able to do. I'm going to ask you to again go for the big ideas that we're really after about this process component. And I'm going to also have you write I can statements, which are statements that's using student language so that the students understand this. And then why have you put in the essential questions too that kind of help guide this. Now let me walk you through this just a little bit. Let me start here first. Again, I gave you a little reading document on this, but I'll just give you an overview of how this works. When you're looking at a standard, you want to look at the nouns and the verbs. The nouns tell you what the concepts are, the need to knows. The verbs are the skills, the things we would expect students to be able to do. So underline the nouns, circle the verbs. That will really help break this down for you. So again, here's an example of a music standard for Nebraska. To give you a little explanation of what this number means, FA means fine arts in the Nebraska Department of Education. The second number is the last grade within a grade band. So in this case, K through 2. 2 there represents that first grade band. If this was a 5, then that'd be 3 through 5. If it's an 8, that's the middle school, 6 through 8. And if it's a 12, it's the high school band. 4 is music. No reason why, it just is that way. Actually, with the fine art standards, we include visual arts, we include dance, we include media arts, we include theater, and so it just happens that music is 4. And then the last number is the artistic process that we're focused in on. So 1 is create, 2 is perform, 3 is respond. So let's go back to our example of a grade band standard for Nebraska. Students will compose, arrange, improvise, read, and perform music with melodies and accompaniments. First thing you want to do is just go through there and circle those skills, the verbs, the things that we want students to be able to do. And then we underline the nouns, the things they need to know about. Now, the standards are very broad, so when we look at music with melodies, we could get even a little bit more specific about that when we talk about knowledge of what a melody is. Well, they have to understand notes on a staff, they have to understand rhythms, they have to understand maybe intervals. There's a lot of other components as we dig deeper into this. Here's an example, again, of a standard component. We combined imagine and plan, those 2 steps. So for this case, again, this is K through 2. We would expect the kids to be able to improvise tonal and rhythmic patterns and to create musical ideas with teacher support at that level that focus in on specific purpose, interest, personal experience. Again, we can kind of focus in on those key words that we see in there to kind of help drive us on this. So I'm going to now go to an example. I actually unpacked these standards for all of my Lincoln Public School teachers because I think I mentioned earlier that this summer we've actually are in the process of redesigning and rewriting the Lincoln Public Schools music curriculum. So this being a very important step, all of my teachers went through the process, but we didn't, we get our 2 hours of professional development on it, but then it just needed to be done before we can take the next step. So I actually just unwrapped it for them. So I'll give you kind of an example. I'm just giving you an example here on the K2. Here's that template. And what I did first was I looked at, I a lot of times started with the essential questions. And here's an easy way of finding those. I would go to the National Core Art Standards website. And I gave you that website on the blackboard. And if you come down here to customize your own handbook, select music, and you can go ahead and just select them all. And then down here are EUs and EQs, enduring understandings and essential questions. Also the process components, and you can click resources if you want. But create your little custom handbook here. It'll take a little while to pop up. There it is. And then, again, you can read through all this, which I think kind of helps you get an overview. But here's general music, and we're right now looking at create. So if I click on creating, here's the imagine, and here's plan. Now, again, remember, in Nebraska, we combine those 2 steps. Here, plan, make, and select was kind of combined together. So we kind of merged a little bit of these together. But what I did was I looked at these essential questions. For imagine, how do musicians generate creative ideas? That essential question is the same across the board. So when you come back over here, you notice I just typed that right in. And this will be the same no matter what grade band you're going to be in. So that's where you can get the essential questions. Those essential questions aren't necessarily something you're going to need to write up. I would use the National Standards Framework for that. Then for the big ideas, again, I'm going to go back over here. I kind of looked at the enduring understandings. Now, I didn't necessarily just copy this. What I did was I looked at it from a little bit more broader view of, what do they need to do when they're creating and imagining and planning ideas? And this is what I came up with. Very short. Emerging of creative ideas, getting kids to kind of think how they come up with ideas. And then I created an I can statement. So from a student perspective, I can improvise tonal and rhythm patterns with support by my teacher. Now you might have more than one I can statements in here, which is great. Go for it. And then I just simply put in there, what are the concepts? Well, in this case, I felt I needed to know tonal patterns, I needed to know rhythmic patterns, skills, a call and response. When you think about kindergartners and first graders, the way you get them to develop some improvisational skills is simply through call and response. They need to be able to sing and play pitch patterns. They need to match rhythmic patterns. And again, I could have added a lot more to this. And I encourage you to get to that depth if you can as a group. Okay? And that's basically what you're going to be doing in this process. Now, what I might encourage you to do is, let me go down here a little bit further. Once you've gone through all the process components here and you fill these in, at the very bottom here, then the knowledge and skills that you put into these three areas is everything for create. So what are all the things that they would need to know? So you basically can kind of look across what you put up here in this column and then synthesize that down here. Same with skills. And then vocabulary. What are the key words and phrases that they're going to need to know to be able to really demonstrate at this grade level the process of how we create music. Then I have a template for performing, and we have a template for responding. And so what you might want to do when you have a group of three, maybe one of you do create, one of you do perform, one of you do respond, and then you can kind of maybe work together and sharing some ideas and tweaking things as you go. So that's what this project is going to be all about. So send me questions if you run into some trouble spots as you go through this, but I think this will be very helpful for you.